Mercedes Moné and creative control in AEW. If you've been paying attention to the online discourse, you've probably seen the memes, the comparisons, the narratives. People are saying she's the new Hulk Hogan. That's right, Mercedes Moné, a black woman in 2025, getting labeled the modern-day Hogan, the guy infamous for backstage politics, ego, racism, and refusing to put over younger talent. It's an absurd comparison, but somehow it's circulating. At the All in Texas media call on July 8, AEW President Tony Khan finally addressed the rumor head-on. He directly shut down the speculation that Mercedes Moné has any sort of creative control in AEW. According to him, it's completely false, and frankly, the whole narrative is laughable when you look at the bigger picture. Still, people want to believe that because Mercedes is being prominently featured and hasn't taken a loss yet, she must be calling the shots, as if Tony Khan is just a figurehead signing checks while Moné dictates booking decisions backstage. But before we dive into what Khan actually said, let's look at the reality of Mercedes Moné's run in AEW. She's undefeated. She's taken on every challenge thrown her way and knocked it out of the park. That's not unusual for a top-tier star. She's not only winning, she's winning convincingly. And people are acting like that's some grand conspiracy. But is it really that surprising? Moné is one of AEW's biggest acquisitions. Someone who still carries the mainstream appeal and global star power from her time in WWE. That kind of momentum doesn't just vanish. She's a draw, and AEW is leaning into that. Tony Khan is not protecting Mercedes Moné out of fear or obligation. He's doing what any halfway competent promoter would do, maximizing the value of his investment. She's one of the only two women on the roster with legitimate mainstream star power, the other being Toni Storm. That's why their match at All in Texas is a big deal. It's a marquee match, not just for AEW's women's division but for the entire company. You don't book your main event stars to look average. You book them to shine, especially when the company is in a competitive environment with WWE and trying to pull ratings, draw pay-per-view buys, and sell tickets. Now, has Moné had her struggles? Sure. Early on in her AEW run, there were growing pains. Some of her promos didn't land, and there were questions about how she'd adapt to the AEW style. But she settled in, found her rhythm, and began putting on consistently strong performances. And once that happened, Khan realized that his high-priced acquisition was delivering, so he featured her accordingly. This isn't about creative control. It's about putting your stars in position to succeed and making sure the fans see them as must-see TV. When Tony Khan was asked about the rumors, he was clear. He said there's absolutely no truth to the idea that Mercedes Moné or anyone else has creative control in AEW. He reiterated that he's always wanted her in the company and that she's one of the biggest stars on the roster. He made it known that he enjoys working with her and respects her a lot. He even emphasized how ridiculous it is that people think she's booking her own matches just because she's on a winning streak. Khan said that he meets with Moné regularly, at least once a week, sometimes multiple times, to discuss ideas and character direction. But he was firm that these meetings don't mean Moné is calling the shots. It's a collaborative process. But at the end of the day, he has the final say on everything. That's how it's always been since AEW's launch. And while he listens to his talent, he's the one steering the ship. He talked about how the match between Moné and Storm is something he's wanted to do for a long time. He's personally invested in it. That's not creative control. That's the booker doing his job and trying to tell stories that make sense and get people talking. He ended by reinforcing that no one in AEW has creative control written into their contracts. Pushes are earned, not demanded, and when a talent is worth pushing, they get pushed. So let's get real for a second. When you have someone like Mercedes Moné, who brings in viewers, sells merchandise, trends online, you don't treat her like enhancement talent. You use her. You put her in high-profile feuds. You let her showcase her strengths. That's how wrestling works. It's not about playing favorites. It's about business. Tony Khan is running a business. AEW is not a vanity project anymore. It's a company with TV deals, pay-per-view expectations, and fan engagement metrics to meet. You think Moné is getting protected because she's politicking? Or maybe, and hear this one out, it's because she's one of the few bankable stars in the division? You can't build a division around unknowns and expect it to grow. You need anchors. Moné is an anchor. Storm is an anchor. That's the reality. AEW has struggled at times with its women's division, and now they have a chance to spotlight two women who can carry segments, move merchandise, and headline shows. Of course they're going to be used prominently. Now, Let's get into why Mercedes Moné seems to get so much hate online. Why is it that out of all the four horsewomen from WWE, Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, Bayley, and Mercedes herself, she gets the most flack? Is it because of her personality, her confidence, the way she carries herself? Maybe it's the fact that she walked away from WWE on her own terms, something very few people have the guts to do. Maybe it's her unapologetic self-assurance. Maybe some people just don't like seeing a black woman who knows her worth. Whatever it is, the hate is disproportionate. She's constantly being compared to Hulk Hogan, a man whose political manipulations are legendary and whose ego destroyed locker rooms. Moné doesn't deserve that kind of comparison. She hasn't buried anyone. She hasn't refused to do business. She hasn't held anyone down. She's simply been booked to win. And when you're trying to build credibility for a new top star in a company still trying to find its balance, that's what you do. Let's also not pretend AEW is thriving at the moment. It's had some struggles. Ratings have dipped. Momentum has slowed. They've lost some goodwill with casual fans. In that context, Tony Khan needs to be strategic. He needs to rely on proven talent to carry the load while he tries to course correct. Moné fits into that strategy. She's a bridge between hardcore wrestling fans and the lapsed WWE audience that might tune in just to see what Sasha Banks is doing in AEW. That's value. That's business logic. That's not creative control. AEW is not in a place where it can afford to sideline people like Moné. They're not in cruise control. They're in build and fix mode. You don't fix things by minimizing your stars. You elevate them and use their spotlight to bring others up with them. That's what's happening with Moné. She's not just winning matches. She's giving the division some much-needed legitimacy and visibility. And if AEW is smart, they'll keep riding that wave as long as it's working. So when people cry about her not taking losses or her always being in the spotlight, they're missing the forest for the trees. AEW isn't doing this because Moné is backstage playing puppet master. They're doing it because it makes sense. She draws reactions. She sparks conversation. She trends online. She brings eyeballs to the product. That's what you want from your top talent. And look, could Tony Khan sometimes go overboard in how he books her? Sure, every promoter has their blind spots. But overbooking a star and giving them creative control are two very different things. Hulk Hogan demanded wins. He wrote clauses into contracts. He refused to lose clean. That's not what's happening here. Moné is being featured like any top star would be. She's winning matches because that's what stars do. So maybe let's tone down the conspiracy theories and just appreciate the reality. Mercedes Moné is doing what she's always done: show up, show out, and get people talking. AEW is using her the way any smart company would. Tony Khan isn't being manipulated. He's making calculated choices based on who moves the needle. That's it. And that's where things stand with Mercedes Moné in AEW. She's not Hogan. She's not some backstage tyrant. She's a star doing star things in a company that desperately needs stars. That's the truth behind the creative control myth.